Our producer Tom Scott said it was essential for us to explain the structure of our show at the beginning of every episode, and he's a really smart guy. So the show works like this. My brother and I make a couple of short films about our lives, whatever we're up to. Then there are a handful of much shorter interstitial films. Then everything is strung together into a nice half-hour show called The Neistat Brothers. In this episode, I try to figure out whether or not I should break up with my girlfriend, and Van leaves all of his worldly possessions in the back of a taxi cab. Our cycle for producing these television show episodes goes like this. We have 6 weeks. 6 weeks to make enough little movies to comprise an episode. The last 10 days or so of the 6-week cycle is spent in our studio editing. No sleeps, no breaks, just editing. The 2 weeks before that, the middle 2 weeks, we might work on a specific film or whatever project needs attention, but we take it pretty easy during this time. And the first 2 weeks of the cycle are party time. That's when we're spending the episode's budget as fast as we can, traveling, whatever. For this episode that you're watching right now, these first 2 weeks for me, Casey, were squandered, wasted, killed. And it's my own fucking fault. I'm going to California today. You see, Tom Sachs from previous films such as My Friend Tom, was having an art show in Los Angeles. A huge, amazing art show about space. Of course we went. But for some reason, instead of going for just 2 days, which would have been plenty of time to see his show and hang out, I spent a shitload of money on a hotel and a rental motorcycle, and I was there for 5 days. 5 days with no plans and no movies to make. I had planned no work. This is when things fell apart. I'm only happy when I'm working. I'm in this total funk right now because I checked out of my fancy hotel room, which sucked. I've got all my gear with me on this expensive rental motorcycle. I'm going to find Van, but I don't know what we're doing. It's like, I'm in Los Angeles, I don't really know why. It's not for play and it's not for work, it's like some funk in between. I'm supposed to meet my sister. There's all these loose ends in my head. If you can imagine like my head just being totally full of unfinished business. Like right now, I don't even know what I'm doing right now. Tom's show was amazing. I think it's the best piece of art he's ever made. Somewhere towards the end of the trip, I figured out what my problem was, why I was so angry during our party week. And it had nothing to do with my amazing hotel room or my awesome motorcycle. And it wasn't just about me not working, it was about why I wasn't working, or why I couldn't work. LA's not so bad. The entire time my brain was preoccupied fighting these monsters that creep up on me every once in a while. These big, scary monsters that had hijacked my every thought. On my plane ride home, I realized I should make a movie about these monsters. The monsters' names are love and ego. Ego versus love. or love versus ego, but never ego and love, because they're always at war. This is Candace, my future ex-girlfriend, and the source of all the material I needed to make this movie. Whenever I encounter something in life that I don't understand, I turn to pop culture. So, Billy Bragg said, "Love is like being on a ride at the fun fair. The sort you want to get off because it's scary, and then as soon as you're off, you want to get right back on again." That's the uncertainty, the excitement you get by embracing ego. John Lennon compared love to a flower, that it needs time to grow. That's the responsibility, the reward of having patience with love. These two are adversaries, always in competition. Love is happy with commitment, but jealous of the excitement that comes with ego. Ego embraces the adventure, but misses out on the consistency love has. At the end of the day, neither are the right choice. But it's give and take. The totally bullshit part is that both options affect other people. It's not just about you. On top of having to figure out all this, you have to consider someone else. Someone else who's also trying to figure it out. And when you make a mistake, there are consequences. Consequences that affect not just you and the charts and graphs in your head that keep track of all this information, but consequences that affect the people closest. That part's not fair. Maybe I hope as you get older, your ego becomes less of a priority and you just need love.
Please bring your razor.
After I finished editing that last scene, the one with the girl and the sad music, I told Van I had finally finished my love versus ego movie. I showed it to him. He said, "Great, what happens next? It's not done. I want to see what happens." Van was right. I needed to better explore ego and love, try to figure out what the hell I was talking about.
Where are we going?
No one knew we were going away. I bought tickets and we got on a plane. We went to the Dominican Republic. I'm not sure how I decided on that. Look how excited we are for the huge wave that's coming towards us. Watch Candace. If I'm an asshole, then why did you come on this trip?
Because
What?
Nothing.
So I'm not an asshole.
You are. I had to sort of figure it out.
So you came on this trip to figure out whether or not I'm an asshole.
Yeah.
And the conclusion? We made it about 18 hours into the trip, and then this guy showed up. And he was angry. but we were still having fun. We went surfing and Candace got an instructor. She did really well. Despite my 15 years of surfing experience, I'm no expert.
Getting killed. Getting totally killed here.
I gave Candace's camera and I told her at all costs she has to get a good shot of me riding a wave. I saw her standing there on the beach, camera in hand, for a good 45 minutes. I finally rode a wave, paddled all the way in, and she told me to go out again. She missed the shot. So I did it again. And I rode the best wave I've ever ridden.
I'm surfing! I'm surfing!
Whoops, I totally missed that one.
That was my best wave ever. How could you not shoot it?
I'm not a camera woman.
She was right. It really was not her fault. These little high-definition cameras process so much information that sometimes when you press record, there's a long delay before it starts actually recording. It just blinks. Stand by, stand by, stand by, stand by. Sometimes these delays can last a while. 5, 6, 7 seconds. The same amount of time as my best ride ever. Despite the super fun surfing and all these other convenient distractions, there was still the ego-love quandary that needed to be quelled.
I used to catch you staring at me before. Now I can't even get your eyes to look at me.
I just don't have any other ideas. We had an argument on our last day there. I got so frustrated I threw in the towel. I ran back to the warm and always welcoming embrace of ego. One thing has become abundantly clear on this trip. Ego wins. But even now as I sit here alone in the studio at 4:48 in the morning, talking into a camera, doing this voiceover, I have no fucking idea how to suss this out. So I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop for now. What fun would life be without all this uncertainty and conflict? Just attempting to confront this enabled me to make this movie. So at least I'll have record of my being 26 years old and having little grip on the slippery, wet noodles that are ego and love.
Of the hundreds of hours of footage I've shot over the last 7 years, I've lost only one tape. It was on this day in 2004. Our truck caught fire on I-95 and burned down to the metal. Casey and I rescued our computers, tapes, and camera from the inferno, but the fire chief took one of our tapes for evidence. And then he lost it. Casey and I label everything with our name, number, and a note that says cash reward if found. We're a bit ridiculous about it, but it minimizes our losses. This story begins around the stroke of midnight on September 11th of this year. This is what I did after I realized that I had forgotten my prized bag in the back of a gypsy cab on the way home from JFK. A bag that contained, among other things, my journal, my notebook for this episode, another notebook with 40 scenes of a screenplay I'm writing, and an XD card with 2 hours of footage for this episode. I sought Casey, the wartime consigliere, for wisdom. All right, so I fucked up good, Frankie. I took a gypsy cab back from the airport last night, and I left my fucking bag in it.
Is it the bag that has your name and information on it?
No, it's like it's the bag from the Bicycle Film Festival. Oh yeah, the bag itself was a prize for exhibiting this movie at the Bicycle Film Festival. It was a special bag given out just to the directors. The SD card with the entire LA trip on it, my Olympus charger, my iPhone charger, and 2 pencils, and the presents that I bought for the Red Bucket crew. What is my strategy to go find it?
Man.
That's tough, right? How much time do I spend on this project?
Give it everything you've got.
September 11th this year started out with a torrential downpour. But it cleared up by the time I decided to ride out to JFK. This is the first night of my search. I had to find a black Ford Expedition and the gypsy cab driver who picked me up the night before. This was a touchy situation. These gypsy cab drivers, who call themselves hustlers, operate illegally. I knew that if they saw me filming, the hustlers wouldn't even have talked to me, and I needed their help to track down the black Expedition. So I kept the camera pointed at myself and tried to look like a tourist. In October of 1999, Yo-Yo Ma, the greatest cellist in the history of humanity, got into a yellow cab on 86th and Central Park West, exactly 1 block from my apartment. He was exhausted. He'd just played to a sellout crowd at Carnegie Hall. He took the cab across the park, then down 5th Avenue to the Peninsula Hotel at 55th Street. He got out, paid the cabbie, and went into his hotel. I wish I could have seen the look on his face when he realized that he had left his $2.5 million 18th century cello in the trunk of the yellow cab. Of course, he had a receipt with the cab's medallion number on it. I didn't have a receipt, but I did have colored pencils, tape, a printer, and a 24-hour Kinko's. The NYPD put out an APB to patrol cars around the city to find Yo-Yo Ma's cab. I printed up about 2 dozen flyers and distributed them to the hustlers at JFK. When I hear stories of people losing everything in a fire, the first thing I think about is their photos and the diaries that narrate them.
And then we get all the way over here, and that's when the happened, and that's when we realized that we lost your bag and your camera and your journal and the bike. But I think we're gonna be able to fix the truck. I mean, it's gonna need a new paint job.
New York is still the port of entry into the United States. Thousands of people from all over the world fly into New York every day, and they all need a ride somewhere. Couple that with the fact that JFK has 9 terminals, each with dozens of gypsy cabs, who also service LaGuardia and Newark airports. My bag search seemed impossible. Here's the thing that tortured me. I knew I could find the bag. I'm a closer. I had 4 weeks of show time budget to find the bag or make movies. So on day 3, I worked at the studio all day and waited for a call from a hustler. I went home, and then I did something I never do, and I wrestled with it. All right, you're just gonna have to ignore those blue shorts. I did something I never do. I gave up, like a quitter. Think about that. I gave up on the bag, sure, but did I really give up? The point of the bag was that some of this show was in there, right? The show's the important thing, right? I wasn't giving up on the show. But what about what Churchill said? Never, ever give up. I really wanted to end this movie with me finding the bag and taking the footage out of it and then showing you the movies that I made with the footage. I don't leave a room without at least 2 cameras on me. This is my Leica. It's really an Olympus Stylus 760 that I painted. I shoot video on it. It stores video on a little card like this. This is what I lost in my bag. I shoot stills on my iPhone, and here's some stills from the LA trip. With my footage lost, these crappy cell phone pictures were the only usable images from the LA trip. It was my best LA trip ever. This was the trip that made me fall in love with California, and I wanted to show that. After I gave up my bag search, my wife said that the trip itself would stay with me forever, whether or not I had the footage to remind me of it. I thought about it. What a load of crap. My memory's terrible. My bad memory is what allowed me to leave the bag in that gypsy cab to begin with. Besides, that was my work in there. Stories, footage, sunglasses. And then I thought, fuck it. It's just a bag. That's life. Five minutes later, I got the call.
87 Central Park West, right?
Yeah. All right, Henry. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Fucking awesome!
I don't have the bag yet, but God works in mysterious ways. I was just talking to my wife about this bag. I had just given up. I said, forget it. I'm not gonna. It was torturing me. I haven't done any work in 2 days. I've written 3 scripts about this, and I haven't been able to figure it out. And he just called me. I swear I just saw a guy in the street carrying a cello case, so I'm gonna finish the Yo-Yo Ma story. The NYPD found the cello. They brought it to Yo-Yo Ma's hotel, and when they got there, there was a horde of fans and press gathered just to see it. And the police handed it over to Yo-Yo Ma without incident. One fan, Joan Bowden, who happened to be passing through the crowd, said, "I've heard him play it. It will bring tears to your eyes."
And the $200 is for me being forgetful. And I think it's all fair.
And now, 2 movies that would have been lost forever. These 2 movies are basically the same, and the first one is about just when you have one of those great, great days. The story takes place on Labor Day. So I rode my bicycle to work. On the way down, I ran into Yaniv and Katie in Times Square. They were on their way to ride a water taxi or something. Then Brett, Josh, Casey, Sam, and I hit some balls at Chelsea Piers. Sam figured out how to get unlimited free balls, and he lost his club on the driving range. Josh stripped down to his boxers and ran through a fountain on the West Side Highway. We went to Tompkins Square Park and had a fence walking contest. Casey won. Casey always wins. We met Mickey and Rel for dinner, then we rode to Casey's. Mickey pedaled and Casey steered. We had dessert on the way, which I forgot to shoot. My cheesecake was the best. We played Guitar Hero and Sam beat 3 songs on Expert. I rode back to my apartment.
And that was my greatest last day of the summer ever.
Right off the plane, Casey and I rented motorcycles. Chrissy and I rode up the coast and went on a 2-day ride through the Los Padres mountain range. Johnny Cash once burned this forest down and had to pay the state of California about $1 million. We ran on the beach at Santa Monica every morning, then swam the Pacific to cool off. I rode with Casey for the second time since his crash in January. Watched a lot of TV in the Georgian Hotel on Ocean Avenue. Spent a fortune on food.
In Pee-wee's Big Adventure, this is where Pee-wee's bike gets stolen.
Went to the Promenade in Santa Monica. We went to Tom's opening, and Doogie Howser was there. Went to Neptune's Net, a seafood shanty featured in Point Break. We met some Argentine biker dudes and went on a run to another biker joint. Classic rock and baby carriages. Then back to the hotel, the only place we watch TV, to watch the MTV Video Music Awards. Then back to New York, where I left my bag in a gypsy cab. Best California trip ever.